Today I'm going to be talking about Bleach, the debut studio album by Nirvana. It was released on June 15th, 1989. It is celebrating 35 years. They released their first single, Love Buzz. I'll talk more about that later. They recorded the album at Reciprocal Recording Studios in Seattle, Washington. And this is the only Nirvana album released on a certain label. I'll get to that later. Also, Dave Grohl is not on this album. They had another drummer. It actually had two drummers, and I'll be talking about that in this video. I'll be talking about the songs, the recording. I'll be focusing on a few songs such as About a Girl, Love Buzz. I'll touch on a few of the others. So let me start with a personal story. So the first time I listened to Nirvana was when Nevermind came out. My friend had this Nevermind CD, and at that time I was listening to a lot of metal, mostly Metallica, Megadeth, that type of stuff. But my friend, he let me listen to this Nirvana CD. It was pretty cool. It was different because it was like heavy enough to keep me interested, but it was different. And I think at that point I started to like open my mind and move away towards metal and start to listen to some other stuff. Later I got into Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and all these different grunge bands. But I think Nirvana was my gateway to grunge. Now, I had never known about Bleach. I always thought that Nevermind was their debut album, but I discovered Bleach later. So I'm going to be going into all of these details. So basically, after Nevermind, Bleach was reissued by Geffen Records in 1992 after the success of Nevermind. But Geffen wasn't the original label, it was Sub Pop, and that's the only Nirvana album to be released on this label. This album sold 40,000 copies in North America before the release of Nevermind, so they did have somewhat of a buzz about them, or a love buzz. But this was a certified platinum. It sold more than 1.9 million copies, and it is Sub Pop's best-selling album to date. When Kurt Cobain died in April 1994, this band became much more popular, and this album started to chart again. So let's talk about the recording process. The band released their single Love Buzz, and then they practiced a couple weeks to prepare for recording this full-length album. Sub Pop actually only wanted an EP at first, but Nirvana said, no, we want record a full album. So they recorded this album at the Reciprocal Recording Studios, and the producer was Jack Endino. So they recorded, it was like right before Christmas. Actually, they started on Christmas Eve, and then they continued actually into the holidays and the winter. They recorded a few songs such as Floyd the Barber, Paper Cuts, and Downer. But they had a different drummer, who was Dale Crover, who was the drummer of the Melvins at the time. But they got a new drummer, and it wasn't Dave Grohl. It was a drummer called Chad Channing. They also had another song called Big Long Now, but they never put it on this album because Kurt Cobain felt it was like too slow and heavy, and it just didn't fit on the album. But then they edited and sequenced the album. Sub Pop had Bruce Pavitt. He ordered it to be completely resequenced. He was the head of Sub Pop. And the album was actually delayed because Sub Pop didn't really have the funds to produce it. And then Jack Endino billed the band for 30 hours, and he only asked for $606.17. Then they got a second guitarist. His name is Jason Everman. And this guy was impressed by Nirvana's demo with Dale Crover. And he provided some money to kind of help produce this album. But he didn't perform on the album, but he did get credit on this album. I think bassist Chris Novoselic wanted to give him some credit just because he gave in some money and it made him feel at home. Now, according to Kurt Cobain, he said that the Sub Pop label wanted them to play more rock music, and they wanted the music to sound more like Aerosmith. Then later, in 2001, Chris Novoselic said that the sound's influence was because they were listening to this tape in their tour van, which they had this cassette deck, and on one side of the tape was Smithereens, and the other side was Celtic Frost. So that was the influence for this album. The songs on this album were bleak, claustrophobic. It was kind of like a darker album. Kurt Cobain said it was a one-dimensional type of album. The sound was also influenced by the sludge metal scene, which was actually pioneered by the band Melvins. And that's actually a good topic for a whole other video, but it was actually like a sludge metal type of album. So they recorded a bunch of songs. For example, Paper Cuts was more of like a folk influenced melody, and Mr. Mustache was about Nirvana's male fans and how Kurt Cobain didn't like that whole like macho thing. Downer was a contempt for the group's audience. School was a simple song and only had 4 lines of lyrics. Scoff was about Kurt Cobain's parents. Negative Creep was about Kurt Cobain himself. That's kind of what he felt about himself. And then there's About a Girl, which I'll talk about more, who was about this certain person who was actually Kurt Cobain's girlfriend at the time. Let's talk about the cover. The album cover was photographed by Kurt Cobain's then girlfriend, Tracy Marander. And I'll talk more about her later because she was actually the inspiration for About a Girl. They played a lot of West Coast venues around the University of Washington, that area. They did their first tour, and they was a double headliner with the band Tad. They were another grunge band at the time. Back at that time, they were wearing a lot of that grunge wear and those lumberjack shirts. So they were kind of credited for having like style, but it was actually like what everybody wore because it was just very cold at that time or where they were living. According to Kurt Cobain, he never wanted to start a fashion trend or be a role model. It's just people just copied what he was wearing. The album had a working title called Too Many Humans, but it was renamed Bleach because Kurt Cobain saw this AIDS poster in San Francisco, and it was telling heroin addicts to bleach their needles. So it had the slogan, "Bleach Your Works," as I'm showing in the poster on the screen now. So you might be wondering if you heard the word slogan, and yes, I was thinking of logo and slogan, and that's just what came out. I meant to say the slogan. So back to the video. They released a CD version of this. It included a cardboard fold-out case with a bonus booklet and photos of the band from 1987 to 1999. For the album's 20th anniversary, Sub Pop released a deluxe issue. And on this new release, Everman is no longer credited on the album, but he appears on the front cover, and he just received a special thanks in the booklet. I want to talk about the song Love Buzz. This is actually a cover song, and it was their debut single. Sub Pop described this as heavy pop sludge. First single was limited to 1,000 copies. In a 1989 review for Melody Maker, Everett True called Nirvana's Beauty Incarnate, describing Love Buzz as a relentless 2-chord garage beat with a sheer monster of a guitar to howl over. He made Love Buzz a joint US Single of the Week and described it as love songs for the psychotically disturbed. There were some alternate versions. A different mix appears on Nirvana's debut album, Bleach. And there was another version on Nirvana's Blue EP, which I'll talk about next. So Nirvana released a song called Blue. That was one of the songs on the album. It's actually the first song on the album. And it was re-released on Tupelo Records as the title track of a 4-song EP, which was released in the UK in November of 1989. And this EP actually charted pretty well. The song was first performed live at the Community World Theater in Tacoma, Washington. This is also the first show that the band played with the name Nirvana. There was another version of Blue that was recorded at Endino at Reciprocal in December of 1988 and released on the Bleach album. The Bleach version of Blue was released on the Blue EP in November 1989, along with the Bleach mix of Love Buzz and the previously unreleased songs Been a Sun and Stain. Now let's talk about a Girl. This is one of the most popular songs from this album. This is the third song on their debut album. This song is about his then girlfriend, Tracy Miranda. Now, they lived together, they lived in an apartment, and they were fighting a lot. It was kind of like a toxic relationship. But she was constantly complaining that he was never helping with the housework. And he wrote this song about her, but she actually didn't know it. This was first revealed in a 1998 documentary, Kurt and Courtney. She discovered it by reading Michael Azerrad's 1993 biography, Come As You Are, the story of Nirvana. So that's how she found out about this. Kurt Cobain wrote this song about a girl. He was listening to the Beatles, the album Meet the Beatles, and that was his inspiration for this song. The song became much more popular with the MTV Unplugged version. This one received a lot of acclaim. And this version was released as a single in October 1994 on the MTV Unplugged the New York album. The song also inspired Nick Hornby's 1998 novel About a Boy. And there were a few singles such as the Puddle of Mud version from 2019. And there was also another version by Post Malone in 2020, which actually sounds pretty good. And this was to raise funds for COVID. So now for my final thoughts. I definitely like this album. It's a different type of album. It's a lot sludgier. It's a lot more raw, a lot more noise. It's very different than Nevermind. Nevermind was more of a poppy, punky type of album, but this was more raw. So that's why I like it. Nirvana has 3 albums, Bleach, Nevermind, and In Utero. And each of those 3 albums have distinct sounds. So I really like all of their albums. Bleach is great. It's just a great, like, raw grunge, early grunge type of album. So that's why I like it. So let me know in the comments. What do you think of Bleach? How would you rank it? What are your thoughts on Bleach? Did you know about it back in 1989? I think a lot of people didn't know about it back then. So that's all. Thanks for watching. I did a review of Nevermind for its anniversary. I'll stick that one right there. Thanks for watching. Please like this video. Helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you have not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.